Horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Audio Jungle.
All right, good evening. Welcome to another edition of your weekly Ho Ho Horoscope. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt. And for the holiday season, we are going to talk about Christmas horror movies. What do you think of this subject, Matt?
It's one of my favorite because Christmas is one of my favorite times of the year, and some of these movies are just absolutely hysterical and entertaining.
They are out there for sure.
Yeah,
One thing when we started putting this together, I found there were more Christmas horror movies to choose from than I would have expected. I
yeah,
thought it was a somewhat limited,
yeah. Me too.
but there was quite a few out there.
Yeah,
I will say I don't know if this category has a definitive iteration. I don't know that there is the Christmas horror movie out there. If I ask you about space horror, it's Alien. If
right.
I ask you about possession, it's The Exorcist. I don't know if the definitive Christmas horror movie exists. You know what I'm saying?
I agree 100%. I thought the same thing when I was looking at different movies. I was like, man, there's different kinds that exist. There's like the slasher, and then it's just, yeah, it's really hard to define it, like you said. It was really hard to nail it down to find a couple.
The first movie I thought of when we got to this category is going to be our first film tonight, and that's Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. Falls right in that era of slashers that were capitalizing on every holiday, every calendar event, trying to take advantage of the Halloween success. But this movie was a lot of controversy when it first came out.
Mhm.
There was protests. There were people calling for it to be banned simply because of the imagery with Santa Claus with an axe, and it was scary to kids, and parents were protesting, and mothers again drunk driving, and everybody threw a fit about this movie for
But
some reason.
hadn't there been previous Christmas horror movies before this? Like, why was this one such a big upheaval? Like, was it just timing of it? Like, the right people heard about it, and yeah,
I think you're right. The ad campaign was a little bit bigger and caught a few more eyes because Christmas Evil came out in 1980 and also features a Santa Claus killer. So I'm not sure why the protests here, but kind of gave the movie some notoriety and made it. It was the first movie I thought of when this category came out.
yeah.
Our movie
Same.
starts in 1971. There's a family in a car. You got the old, unsafe traveling habits with the infant baby on the mother's lap in the front seat. You know,
Yeah,
exactly the way you'd want to see it done today.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Little Billy's in the back. For some reason, my wife pointed out immediately he has a ton of lipstick on in this scene in the back of the car. Don't know why, but he loses it later on.
Yeah.
And they're visiting Grandpa at the mental hospital in Utah. And for some reason, the doctor wants to talk to the family, so they leave 5-year-old Billy alone with the comatose Grandpa. And when everyone leaves, of course, he's not comatose. He grabs Billy by the arm and tells him that Christmas Eve is the scariest night of the year because bad kids are punished. And if he's not good, he better run for his life.
Mhm.
I don't know what this accomplished other than setting Billy on edge. But I found it funny. The parents come out of the meeting with the doctor after leaving the 5-year-old alone with Grandpa, and they leave.
Yeah.
They
Well,
drove all this way,
it could have all.
and it's a 3-minute visit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually kind of a comedic scene too, because like, even the dad's like, he's getting worse, and like he can't hear you. So even the son's like, why did we come here then? Like,
Right.
his grandpa can't hear you, and if this, like, Billy's like, well, why did we come? Like, well, to pay respects to grandpa. But I think maybe one thing that scene tries to accomplish is like maybe this traumatic experience has gone through generations throughout the family, right? Like maybe it happened to the grandfather and it's
Mm.
just kind of being passed down. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. But it gives the impression of a very long car ride and not the ride you would take for a 3-minute visit. But that's what they did.
Yeah.
We go to a Santa Claus holding up a convenience store, and the Santa pulls a gun, shoots the clerk, and robs the store for $31.
Yeah.
Even in 1984 money, that's just not a
Like
great
90
deal of
bucks.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We cut to the same Santa is broken down in the road and is flagging down the family for help. And it happens to be our family with Billy in the back seat. And
And the
Billy
baby.
freaks out. Santa pulls the same gun and starts firing through the windshield.
Yeah.
The dad backs into a ditch, and we see the dad open the door and slump out into the road.
Yeah.
Dead.
Start crawling. Yeah.
Billy has run to the weeds and is hiding and is watching this whole thing unfold through the brush. And he watches his dad fall out dead, and then Santa rips his mother out of the car, assaults her,
Yep.
and then finally slaps her and cuts her throat.
Vicious.
And that's the whole time with Billy watching.
Yeah. Yeah, they keep panning back to him, and he's kind of like ducked down on the side of the road, and he's watching. He's just being traumatized, watching his parents get murdered.
And baby Ricky is now on the seat by himself, just crying.
Mm-hmm.
And we jump forward 3 years, and we're at an orphanage, and they're in class, and Billy, for his Christmas assignment, draws a Santa murder scene, which raises the attention of his teacher. And you would think these people would have some insight into the trauma he went through, and maybe excuse him from this assignment, or but he does what you would expect. He draws the experience he has and gets punished for it. The orphanage is run by a mother superior who is a hard driving corporal punishment figure. And he has one sympathetic Sister Mary who tries to help Billy and tries to be sympathetic to the things he's gone through. But she really doesn't have much pull.
Right.
Mother Superior cracks the whip there.
Yeah, she's just like, I don't care about your opinions. He's a child. He's going to learn how to act right no matter what he went through. And that's the bottom line. Like, and that's just her stance. She states her opinion, but she states her stance. She's just like, he's just going to get better because he's going to have to get better. So we're not going to play into it.
Yeah.
It's rough. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to be very successful, but she's running the show. Sister Mary comes and lets Billy out after a period of time. He's been locked in his room as punishment, and he's going to be able to go in the yard and play. And on his way, he hears noises, and comes to a door and looks through the keyhole and finds a couple having sex in the middle of this orphanage.
Yeah.
No explanation of who they are, how there's adult level people in the orphanage, but of course, Mother Superior catches him, pushes Billy out of the way, opens the door, and whips the participants. But of course, Billy's in for punishment too, so he gets taken to his room.
Yeah.
He's whipped, and he's told he has to stay in his bed.
Yeah. So he's now still at this young age, still seeing things at a young age he shouldn't be seeing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just building on the trauma and being punished for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for every one of his experiences that aren't his fault, maybe he shouldn't have been peeping in the door.
Right. Well, he's a kid. He didn't know what he was looking at. He just heard noises and he went over there. Right.
He keeps getting punished for things he's the victim of.
Yeah. It's a good way to punish someone.
He falls asleep and has a nightmare, and in the nightmare he keeps reliving the scene from he's still a child, but the scene from 3 years ago where he saw his parents killed. He wakes up from the nightmare screaming, runs out of the room. So of course, without a sympathetic ear to be had, he's punished further. Now he is going to be tied to his bed so he cannot get out. Again, no safety consideration, just awful situation for the poor kid.
Yeah, and I think it might also be, you know, at the time, a little bit of an allegory to how bad orphanages were, because there's been a lot of abuse cases that came out of orphanages over the years.
Yeah.
And I think back in the 80s, there was some kind of issue with it where it was starting to bubble up in the news. And I think there was some kind of underlining tone there, you know, like it was just a toxic environment for him to be in.
And you think about these kids are already in a horrific situation, in a tragic
Hmm.
situation, and then rather than a place of solace, it's a place of punishment and
Yeah.
being mistreated further. It's really
Almost,
sad.
it's almost like a prison. It goes right back to, it's a prison horror for these kids. Yeah.
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
the prison of the mind, like you had talked about.
Yeah.
Um, so he finally gets let out from his punishment on Christmas, of course. All the kids each get a present, and then Santa comes and visits, which Santa coming after the presents seems, you know, not exactly the way you draw it up, but it is what it is. And Mother Superior insists that Billy is going to adapt and he is going to sit on Santa's lap. So, of course, Billy freaks out a little bit and he turns and punches the Santa, just decks him.
And it was a great right hand. When I watched, I was like, that was a good right hand for that little kid. I watched that scene. I was like, that was a good one. He got him nice, right in the chin.
Yeah, it decks him, and he takes off, and we cut to 1984, the year of the movie, where Billy is now 18 years old, and at 18, you're removed from the orphanage. You're kind of put out on your own, and he gets a job as a stockman at a toy store, and he's actually doing an excellent job. He's
Yeah.
very attentive. He works hard. He's doing very, very well.
They have one of the most classic 1980s montages of him working with that 80s music in the background, and the boss kind of comes in and like gives his nod of approval, and
Yes,
it's just so cheesy.
yeah, like they were redoing a boat or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody working together. Um, of course, Christmas season rolls around as it does every year, and now the store that he's working at gets a store Santa to sit and have all the children come and to draw visitors to the store and attention to the store, and that freaks him out a little bit. That night, he goes to bed and he's dreaming of having sex with one of his coworkers who he's very fond of, but his dream is interrupted by Santa appearing, telling him
Yeah.
he's being naughty and slicing a knife right down through his back. And of course, he wakes up with the dream spoiled. The next day, he goes into work to find, lo and behold, Santa has called in sick, and his boss wants him to fill in. Um, quite a twist of circumstances. And
Yeah.
rather
And
than go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, at no point from his history of being in the orphanage to him being released to the nun getting him to the job has anyone communicated what horrific experiences led to him being in an orphanage, and no one knows about his past. No one knows about, like, yeah, it's never explained. Like that, I feel like everyone in town would have known this. You know, like never mind just like the nurse, the nun saying, "Hey, by the way, you know, he had a horrific incident with Santa Claus, so let's just try to be sensitive about that stuff." It's never communicated. He's just thrusted right into it.
Keep him in the back. Just keep him in the back while all this is going on. Let him do the shelves and do his job.
Yeah.
But no, Billy is constantly put in awful situations. And rather than
Yeah.
say no, he wants to please his boss. Next thing
Mhm.
you know, Billy's dressed up as Santa. And he's sitting there with a line of kids. He's got a little girl on his lap, and she is misbehaving, pushing, whining, kicking, and he tells her that if she's not good, that he's going to punish her. And he says it in a tone that kind of shuts the little girl right up.
Yeah.
And all the other adults are sitting back saying, "Wow, he's so good with kids."
Yeah. And the boss is kind of smiles, like, everything's under control. This is wonderful, and walks away. Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
And so they close. The day ends. Billy gets through it. They lock up. It was Christmas Eve, so the Christmas season is done for the toy store. They lock the door, and they're having their company Christmas party with the handful of employees that they have. Billy's doing shots with the boss, and you're thinking, okay, he got through this, but he's still dressed as Santa. The girl he likes goes into the back room with one of the other stockmen, and they start kissing. And you can see Billy's getting a little jealous. He's doing shots with the boss. And it's you can see all these things starting to steam.
Yeah, the mixed emotion is starting to bubble. Yeah.
Yeah, and the boss cracks a joke to him, saying that be careful because you got a busy night. And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" And he points, you're being dressed as Santa. And he says, "Well, you know what Santa does tonight, and we know what Billy knows that Santa does tonight."
Right,
so
right.
it's kind of a little twist there.
Yeah, I like that line. I like that part.
I do
Yeah.
too. It's kind of humorous, and
Yeah.
the boss gets sillier and sillier as he gets drunk. Billy goes in the back, and this coworker Andy is assaulting the girl that he likes. One thing about this movie that again, when we watched it, my wife commented on. Apparently, in 1984, if you're alone with a woman, you must sexually assault her. And in 1984, no one wore a bra, so that this was easy to rip shirts open and expose breasts.
Yeah, each one of these scenes was exactly the same. Every one of the assaults. Yeah, yeah.
The Santa on the mom.
Yep.
And the Andy with the girl worker in the back. Yep. And there's another scene later that's consensual, but still is almost
it's the same exact shot.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. No bras were sold in 1984, apparently. At least that was my wife's take on that. So he's having flashbacks while he's seeing this happen. He pulls Andy off, says naughty, and then wraps Christmas lights around his neck and hangs him by the Christmas lights.
Yeah, very like Michael Myers-esque, right? Like the way he just like lifts him up with this like superhuman strength and just
Yeah, and Billy's a big strapping boy at this point, and but that still was like you said, almost supernatural with the strength that would be required.
I just thought it was cool too, though. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I'd never seen anybody hung with Christmas lights before.
Yeah.
The girl, even though she was being assaulted, calls him crazy and slaps him, and he grabs a box cutter and he quotes Mother Superior. Punishment is good. And he proceeds to slit her up the middle with the box cutter.
Yeah.
So wonderful things he was taught at the orphanage. Punishment is good.
Yeah.
Hearing all the commotion, the boss goes into the back and is looking around. There's some nice, some kind of creepy cuts of some creepy old toys and the boss looking, and you don't know where Billy is. And a little moment of tension. This isn't the most artistic movie of all time, but I thought that scene was pretty well done. Gave some suspense to it and gave some depth to it. And finally, Billy takes the sharp end of a hammer and buries it into his boss's forehead.
Yeah, yeah, right. That was a good scene. Like right on top of his head, and they show him like falling down like on some boxes or something like that.
Yeah, just flat out.
Yeah.
And the hammer stays buried, which is kind of cool. The secretary goes in the back and sees the boss is dead, and Billy's there, so she starts to panic, and somehow she gets the axe, and she's running out to the front door to try to leave, and Billy takes a bow and arrow and shoots her right in the middle of the back before she can get out. At this point, Billy leaves the store, and the next thing we see is Sister Mary, who's coming to check on Billy, knowing what this, all this trauma may do to him, and all she finds is the bodies. Billy's gone. So that leads us to the next scene. There's a babysitter in a basement with a boyfriend, and I kept finding myself wondering, like, this is Christmas Eve and it's getting late at night. Like, you have a young child at home. Where are you that you need a babysitter on Christmas Eve? I know there's Christmas parties and stuff, but I mean, when I was brought up Christmas Eve, you were home with family.
Yeah, it was almost like they took that classic babysitter trope
Yep.
and just inserted it anyways.
Yeah.
They didn't even care. They just had to insert that for that one scene.
And the babysitter happens to be Linnea Quigley on an early role, famous scream queen who is known for being in horror movies and always having her breasts hanging out.
That was
That's and I've heard her admit the same thing in interviews. That was her thing.
That was her niche. That's where she made her coin. Yeah.
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 For some reason, in the middle of their little sexual encounter, she gets up to go to the front door to let the cat in. And the cat comes in, but also so does Billy.
She won't get up for the kid. Hey, just go to sleep. When
Right.
she hears the cat, she's like, hold on a second.
I got to take care of this.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the best death in the movie,
Yes.
she is picked up by Billy and impaled on a mounted deer head with the antlers.
Slowly. Yeah, slowly. Like, it's not even fast. It's like a slow,
Yeah, it's not like the hook in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It is pushed up against him, and you see him push out her skin and then finally rip through.
Yeah. That was impressive, actually.
Yeah, it's a pretty good scene.
Yeah.
Pretty good scene. The boyfriend comes upstairs and he ends up fighting with Billy. He hits him with a fire poker. Then he picks up the phone to call for help. Billy rips the phone cord out, wraps it around the boyfriend's neck, and then hurls him through the window. And in an odd twist that, not sure if this is how it would happen, the window, rather than just shattering, large shards of glass end up impaled through the boyfriend in the yard. So he's killed with the glass.
Yeah.
And in probably my favorite scene in the movie, the little girl who they were babysitting walks out and sees Santa. Forget the fact that he's bloody and crazed look in his eyes, but here's Billy dressed as Santa, and she goes up to him and wants a present. And he gets down on,
greedy little kid.
Yeah, well, her expectations are different than Billy's. He gets down on her level, and he asks her, "Are you good?
Yeah.
Or are you naughty?" And she says, "No, I'm good."
Yeah.
He says, "You didn't do anything naughty all year." She's like, "No, I've been really good." So he gives her the box cutter that he previously cut the girl in the back of the toy store with, and walks away. And the girl's sitting there holding this bloody box cutter as her gift from Santa. And I just thought the humor there was.
I thought that scene was hilarious because the girl, I mean, she's like, "Listen, I know you just murdered the babysitter, but do you have a present?"
Yeah, forget about that. I barely know her. What do you have? Yeah. No,
I'm only gonna get this chance like once in a lifetime to meet Santa. Please, do you have something?
The next scene I also found strange, not as funny, but the cops are out now looking for a Santa.
Right.
They have the report from Sister Mary. They know, there's a Santa out here doing bad things.
Yeah.
And they see a Santa climbing up a ladder going in a window.
Right.
So they bust in this house. They run up the stairs. They slam the door open, and it's a dad playing Santa for his daughter.
Yeah.
Which, again, I don't really follow the logic of this. I can get dressing up and playing Santa for the. Why are you climbing in a ladder into your own window? She's asleep. Like,
yeah, that's not even the trope of Santa comes down the chimney, not through your.
I thought the whole thing again, kind of forced logic.
It's a gag. Yeah.
So they don't have the Santa. We go to two young teenagers sledding in the woods, and again, I'm back to it's Christmas Eve. What are you people doing? But these two kids they're got to be 12, 13. And they're out sledding in the woods by themselves.
It's a small town. It's a small town. There's like 1,100 people. They've got nothing else to do. They're bored.
Oh, man, go do something with your family, I guess. But luckily, some older kids come and bully them and take their sleds. So these kids now have to go home. But the older kids find out as they go down the hill. The first one goes down. The second one goes down, who kind of led the bullying. And as he's sledding down the hill, Billy jumps out from behind a tree, says naughty, and beheads him with his axe.
This is a great scene.
The sled comes down the hill to the other friend, and the head rolls right down with it. And that'll teach you for bullying those little kids, I guess.
Yeah. And then the other kid I thought was funny because he has this like Matt Blanc like from the like the Bugs Bunny scream. Like he just he just screams like the Matt Blanc. Like it was perfect.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool. We go back to the orphanage, and the kids are in the yard. They're playing and they're waiting for Santa, the yearly visit from Santa, post presents for some reason. But the a cop pulls up and he's watching out for the orphanage and he's watching out for a Santa. So he calls out to this Santa who just keeps walking towards the kids. So the cop guns him down, shoots him 3 times in the back, and he goes face down. And we quickly learn this was not Billy. This was Father O'Brien, who was going to be Santa for the kids and was the legitimate visiting Santa. He didn't answer because he was deaf. I don't know how effective a deaf Santa is to sit on their lap and thank him and tell him all the things you want out of life. But Father O'Brien was deaf, and for it, he got blasted in the back by this overzealous cop.
It's funny because that scene now is real telling of the times from the last few years with a lot of the stuff that's been going on. Yeah.
Sadly.
Yes.
So
as absurd as that might have been, now you watch it, you're like, oh geez, I don't even know if they could put this in a movie right now.
True. Yeah. So yeah, Santa is gunned down in front of all these kids, and it's not Billy. It's not the bad guy. So this same cop is now patrolling the grounds, and Billy comes upon him and axes him in the chest and has him tumble down a cellar stairway. So we know Billy's there.
Yep.
Cop's out of the picture now. Sister Mary had gone to the police station and got the head detective, and they were kind of working on this together. And now we know they're headed for the orphanage, but we have not seen them yet. Billy goes to the glass door. All the kids are inside now for safety reasons, but Billy as Santa, is standing at the front door, and the little kids run right over and pushes the door open to let him in. So now Billy's inside, and he goes right to Mother Superior.
Mm-hmm.
And he stands over her with the axe, and he says, naughty. And as he's about to come down, we hear Billy get shot from the back. Sister Mary and the head detective had shown up
just in time.
Another Santa or another human being shot to death in front of these same kids who are already at an orphanage. Like, damn, they better bring in child psychologists for the next 15 years for these poor kids.
Yeah. They just witnessed 2 Santas get murdered.
Yeah. Like, don't bring Santa next year. I don't want to see it. Like, I'm done with it.
Yeah. They're converting to another religion.
And in the end scene, we see Billy's little brother, Ricky, who's at the same orphanage because he's not old enough yet to be released. He looks at Mother Superior and he gets a scowl on his face, and he says, naughty. And it cuts. And I thought that was terrific because in that era of films, we were dealing with slashers and we were dealing with sequels, and every movie left the door open for sequels. But I thought Ricky experiencing this trauma through his brother, I thought that was the most natural opening for a sequel that actually made sense.
Not only that, but I think that the way they introduced, like, there was a surprising amount of depth and nuance in the way they developed the character, unlike most slashers that do that. They spent the first half of the film kind of explaining how he developed all this trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was also, like you said, brilliant towards the end, at the very end, how they kind of continuously like pass it along. So it starts off with the grandfather, and then it goes through all the childhood trauma that he goes through, and then it goes on to the brother, like, who witnesses all of this right in front of him. And there was just a lot of continuity in that trauma that I think developed a lot of the character of the movie.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed this movie more than I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
I had not seen this since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And
it had been years since I'd watched it too, and I liked it way more than I remembered.
Same. Same for you know what it is. You know, it's a bit of a cheesy slasher.
Yeah.
There's some gaps in logic and things that are just done for the sake of having a cool scene, but
Yeah.
it was better than I remembered it, and it was actually pretty good. Interesting point about this. We talked about it, a lot of controversy when it came out. This movie opened in November of 1984 and got pulled after 1 week.
Yep.
And it actually made money. It was overall profitable, even with its only running for 1 week because it
Yeah.
was so inexpensively made.
It made like $2.4 million, which was like 3 times the budget in like the first 10 days or something like that.
What I found interesting is another all-time classic horror movie opened the same week as this,
Same day, I think.
the same day,
Yeah.
and actually this movie outgrossed that movie for the week it was in theaters, and that movie was A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yep.
So who would have thought that for their opening week of run this would have out earned an
Yeah.
all-time classic?
Can you imagine if they never pulled it? You know?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it got 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 ridiculous sequels, anyways.
Yeah.
The second, I think by 3 or 4, they weren't even playing in the same storyline. They just used it
Just
as a
evolved. Yeah, they were just using the name.
yeah,
Yeah.
just an excuse to have a Christmas horror movie that had nothing to do with the original. But
It's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite movies all time, and he owns one of the original prints.
no kidding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He talked about it at a film festival.
Hmm.
Him and Rodriguez, I believe they were talking about. They actually recreated one of the scenes on stage with the grandfather and the son.
Oh,
And he was talking about how it's one of his favorite films ever.
no kidding. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, our second film for this week, and here we have to pause. Um, it's Christmas, Bloody Christmas. It's a brand new 2022 release. It's from director Joe Begos, who did VFW and Bliss. So if you get kind of idea of the sensibility, but
Yep.
this movie just came out last week. So
Yep.
if you want to pause us, go open your Shutter app and check this movie out and come back to us. We'll give you a chance to do that. Otherwise, we'll start breaking it down. Okay, I thought the opening of this movie was really cool. It opens with some fake holiday commercials that are ridiculous and over the
Yeah.
top.
I knew right away when those commercials started, it had that Rick and Morty like interdimensional. They have like the interdimensional cable commercials on Rick and Morty, and it just reminded me of that right away. Like just like ridiculous commercials.
Yeah,
So I knew right away I was going to enjoy it.
Yeah, we get a family malt beverage that everyone can enjoy over the holidays. We get THC cookies.
Yeah.
The chocolate chips laced with THC.
Yeah.
And then we get a commercial for robotic Santa.
And the documentary too, where the kid finds mommy with Santa Claus, and it's like the Lester story where like someone that like, kills his family because
yeah. So we get all these fake commercials. The final one is the robotic Santa. That's going to be the baseline for our story here. Then we get the credits. We go to our main character, Tori, walks into a record shop that she's apparently the owner. She has some banter with a customer and also with her employee Robbie. She talks about going on a Tinder date on Christmas Eve. There's some banter between her and Robbie. He's trying to convince her to ditch it and go get a drink with him. You can see there's some flirting and some maybe some sexual tension between the two of them.
Very Kevin Smith style, like Clerks, like the way the banter was. Like I actually really liked it. It was like that Tarantino Kevin Smith kind of. It's very like opinionated and trivial over cultural matters. Like they're discussing like best bands and stuff like that, and just being really opinionated. You can tell they have like some kind of history. They had great chemistry, by the way. I thought their chemistry was fantastic.
Yeah, their banter runs through the first half of the movie like nonstop, really.
Yep.
They leave at the end of the night and they stop at the toy store next door, and their friends Lana and Jay are there, and they all share a drink together. And Lana and Jay are talking about they're gonna fool around inside the toy store because they think it'd be kinky on Christmas Eve. And Tori and Robbie head to the bar. So at the bar, they continue their conversations. Their conversations are very sexual for people who are not dating or not with each other. They really go down some interesting
Yeah,
paths.
yeah,
The town sheriff shows up. He buys everybody drinks, and then the bartender says you gotta wrap it up for the night, pretty much.
yeah.
We go back to Lana and Jay, and they're at the toy store having sex, and we see the robot Santa turn on, and we see it from first person perspective. We are in the eyes of the robot Santa,
Yeah,
and we
like Terminator 2, like he's walking in the bar. Like, yeah, yeah.
yeah, we get him stalking through the toy store, searching out the sounds. We see it from his electronic vision perspective.
You can hear his heavy, clunky movements and like his feet going and like coming like hitting the ground and
Mhm. Yep, yep. He comes up. He follows the noise because, like I said, they're in the middle of having sex, and he comes up behind him with an axe and hammers it right into the middle of Jay's back and just buries it into him. He grabs Lana by the head and he is smashing her face repeatedly into a glass display case
yeah.
Until she is dead. And that's the end of them. We see, Robo Santa. He leaves the toy store, walks out into the streets, which is kind of in conjunction with Tori and Robbie have left the bar.
Who had just left. Yeah, they had just walked by. Yeah.
They get into his car, and they finally get it started, and they leave. And Robo Santa is following them at a very slow pace. So he's headed to wherever they're headed, but they get there well in advance of him. They get to her house. She lives with her sister Libby and her brother-in-law Mike. They're sleeping, which is fine, except as soon as they get there, they start playing loud, pulsing hard rock music. And the banner you talked about continues.
They're drunk. Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't think they
are. Yeah. They don't care, but they don't wake up. The sister and brother-in-law don't wake up for any of this. And the banner continues. They're debating sequels and horror movies and albums and band iterations and
it's just quick, witty banter back and forth, opinionated, and
although she has horrible taste in picking the sequels, and
all the movies, they're all
she picks the worst of every franchise, but
that had to have been done on purpose because I disagreed with everything she said, and I was like, this has to be done on purpose just to make her seem like opinionated. You know what I mean? Like just to, like there were no good opinions, but it was funny. I think it added to the humor.
Yeah.
Alien Covenant, get out of here.
And they keep drinking. They've been drinking all night, and they're just, they just keep pounding down drinks. And finally they start kissing, and they go upstairs. So now that they're upstairs, the scenes of them being intimate are intercut with Robo Santa breaks into their neighbor's house. They apparently followed him, but went into the wrong house. And the father comes out and finds him. And he axes the father in the back, just like he had done, at the toy store. But the father doesn't die, and the father starts crawling up the steps. And in a really brutal scene, the Robo Santa stomps his head straight into one of the stair risers, and
just curb stomps him right into it.
Just mushes it. It's it was gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wife comes out and of course screams for what she's seeing, and he takes the pointed end of the axe. And I thought of this immediately. Ever since you said you have an issue with the eyeball thing, every week we have a movie where somebody gets hit in the eyeball, and he takes the pointed end of the axe and sticks it through her eyeball.
Jerry, this has been happening my whole life.
Yeah, insane. So the next thing is the kid comes out. Of course, there's always a kid coming out, and Tori has now come downstairs, and the kid's asking Santa where's his mom, and Tori's at the kitchen getting a drink, and she sees out the window and sees the kid murdered against the window. So she starts freaking out.
I was actually glad they went through with that, because I was going to be disappointed if they didn't. I was like, I want to see them go all the way with this. You know what I mean? Like, because the robot Santa can't have morals. You know what I mean? Like they had to like with the kid. You know what I mean? Like when they got him, I know it's vicious, it's brutal, but you know, like it's a movie. Like you know what I mean? Like I was just like, what's he gonna do here? When he swung the axe, they don't really show it, but like I was just like, all right, cool.
All right,
they,
cool.
they went through with it, yeah. Like they went all the way, yeah.
All right, cool. That's one way of looking at it. So she's waking up everybody in the house. Like I just saw this kid get murdered, you know. So tells them they got to leave. So now everybody's awake. The sister and brother-in-law are awake, and she's got Robbie down there, and the lights go out. And this was a kind of cool visual scene. They're all crouched in the dark. Santa is walking across the front of the house, and they are just cascaded in the pulsing red, and then black, and then green, and then black, and then red. You know, and the lights from the season from the neighbor's house pulsing into their darkness kind of created a cool effect, I thought.
Yeah, I love the neon lighting that they use, all like the Christmas lighting that they use throughout the whole movie. And it's kind of funny as a backdrop because Tori, she's anti-Christmas the whole time as they're having all these conversations. But there's all these Christmas lights up everywhere, so everything's really Christmas lit and neon lit, and it's a good contrast. And like you said, like once they're like cascaded and trying to like hunch down, like it's just it's all these like Christmas lights. It was very, very neat.
So the Robo Santa breaks through, and the first person there is Robbie. He tries to axe him, but Robbie blocks it, and then they all start to run away. But Santa catches the sister and Libby, and he twists her, snaps her neck. And he's, her husband Mike is there, and we see that Santa is just about to axe Mike, and it cuts to Tori and Robbie running out to their car. And in their haste to try to get away, they back into another vehicle, of course. Nobody ever gets away clean. The owner of that car comes out, and he's yelling and throwing a fit, and they're yelling, trying to tell him, hey, we got to go. And he's just mad about his car getting hit. And the Robo Santa comes out, and he kills the man and then spears him through the windshield. The guy goes right through the windshield, blood splattering all over Robbie and Tori. They're screaming, and Santa climbs up on the hood and pulls Robbie out and throws him to the ground, and then splits his head with the axe right up against the front of the car. And we see the head kind of crush and cave in and give way to the axe. And
yeah, I did not see that coming. I was like, wow. Like I thought he was going to be one of the main characters moving forward, and I was like, nope. They just
no more banter.
No more no more banter. Right there goes all that buildup of that character gone. I was like, oh, that's
They might have ran out of things to say because it was over. So the police arrive. They pull in and they shoot the Santa down with a shotgun. Common theme we're gonna develop here over the last half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tori gets in the back of the cop car, but Santa's not down. This robot was made from developed from a military tactical robot, and he don't stay down. So he gets back up. He takes the gun away from the cop, and he blows the cop's head off. So Tori jumps into the front of the police car. She runs over Santa twice. She pummels him, just boom and boom, and then takes off with the cop car. And she's crazed. She's covered in blood. And she sees other cops, and she pulls over looking for help, and they arrest her. She's got a stolen cop car. She's covered in blood, and she just left the scene of a murder.
Mm-hmm.
So they're completely being jerks to her, particularly the one cop.
Yeah.
He takes her back to the station. The sheriff, of course, is the guy who we saw meet Tori and Robbie at the bar earlier. And he oddly, he lets her free, and he says, well, I know you didn't do it. Not sure how he knows this.
Right.
He has no evidence of anything that's happened. He knows.
Covered in blood and being frantic. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the cops call to the people at the scene. and they can't get the ambulance to answer. They can't get the other cops to answer. Now they're really concerned. They're thinking about maybe heading out there when an ambulance comes pulling up outside of the police station, driving really fast, and then it crashes into a car and blows up that car right outside of the police station. So now it's like, okay, whatever was there has now arrived at our doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
So the cops, they get their guns. Tori gets a gun and a taser, and the two police officers go outside. They hear the one hears gunshots, and all of a sudden the body of the sheriff that was at the bar earlier comes launching over and just lands on a car, and it looked like he was launched from 50 feet away.
Yeah.
Robo Santa, he shoots, and he takes the gun, and he comes up and he just shoots the other officer in the head. So the two police officers were done in fast.
It was funny because I thought of Die Hard when he said ho ho ho, now I have a gun. Like I thought about that once. I was like, oh, Santa has a gun now.
Yeah, he's John McClane.
Yeah.
So he's in the police station looking for Tori. She's hiding under desks, and he just is throwing desks out of the way until he finally throws the one, and she's there. He picks her up by the hair, and she takes her taser, and she zaps him. He seems to short circuit a little bit, and he goes down, and then she takes off. She gets in the ambulance, and she's going to boogie out of there. But we saw when she tased him, he's got a green light and a blue light. The robot part of him is coming through.
Yeah.
His lights go out, but a few seconds later, his lights come back on, and he jumps onto the back of the ambulance as she's driving away. And he opens the doors, and he's coming through, and he's coming to the front. So she speeds up like crazy and smashes into a parked car. Robo Santa launches out the windshield. Yeah, he just flies out of there. He's struggling to get up, and she uses the ambulance to push a car on top of his arm, so he's trapped, which made me think of the movie we talked about last week with Mia and the Evil Dead from 2013.
Yeah, yeah.
By the car.
Yeah.
But then she takes the gas tank of that car that's on top of him, and she lights the gas tank, and the whole thing explodes. And we see Robo Santa's twitching, his circuits are frying, he's burning, and we think, okay, that she might have got him. And she heads into her record store, and Santa comes back, and now he has laser eyes.
Yeah.
And he lasers his own arm off so that he can get up, and he continues the pursuit of Tori. Now you can see the metal. He's almost like Terminator-esque.
Terminator, yeah.
Half Santa, half cyborg. Missing one arm. A lot of Terminator, type imagery there.
Yeah.
And he's going after Tori. She takes a sword from a display in her store, and when he finally gets upon her, she puts it through the middle of him. And again, he fries, short circuits a little bit.
Yeah. I love that part. It made me laugh because I can imagine they were like in the creative room, like, well, how is she gonna kill Robot Santa? And someone was like, with a sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's just random and ridiculous. Yeah.
So they try to kill him with a shotgun, running over him, burning him, exploding tasering him. Now a sword, but doesn't work any better than the others. His lights come back on. He pulls the sword out, and he's now stalking her.
Yeah.
She gets the idea of starting a fire to activate the sprinkler system. Well, now water's coming down. Robot gears are exposed. He's chopping at her. At one point, he gets her in the ankle. At one point, he gets part of her hand. But the water is starting to have an effect on him. Now she's crawling away. He's crawling after her, and he starts to frazzle a little bit. But he keeps coming. She pushes which I thought was a nice throwback touch, a bookcase full of old VHS tapes.
Yeah.
The heyday of horror, on the VHS tapes, dumps them onto Santa, but he pushes them off. She's crawling, he's crawling, and it looks like she's running out of options. She's backed up against the wall, nowhere to go. This thing's crawling up her. She reaches and grabs the electrical line from the wall, rips it out of the wall, and sticks the electrical lines into the Robo Santa.
Like right into his chest, right? Like
yeah. So straight electricity into all his circuitry. He fries, and then he explodes. And then we see Tori. She crawls out into the street as daylight breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of the movie.
Yep.
So it was. You know what I liked about this movie? I'm not going to tell you this is the best movie ever made.
No,
but it was fun.
It's fun. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, it's just ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's ridiculous. You could tell the filmmakers were like, let's just go.
Let's just
balls out and
let's go all the way. Yeah.
Make this ridiculous. Let's have some creative kills.
Some ridiculous banter. It's a fun movie.
The only part I didn't like was that it took 25 tries to kill the Robo Santa, which I guess fits the he was a recommissioned soldier robot, but
yeah.
It got a little like, okay, come on, is this really gonna...
yeah, like towards the end, yeah, like it gets right back to the sword part, like like we tried this, we tried that, like we're gonna dump everything, like fire on them, it's just one thing after another, and then finally it's just like short-circuiting with electricity did it.
Well, and he explodes. So I actually thought when she crawled out in the street that maybe a hand was going to still be crawling after her or something, but it ended. But it was a fun movie. It was to me, it was a throwback of just crazy. It had some Evil Dead 2 sensibilities to it. It had some just wild, over the top. And doesn't take itself too seriously.
That's what I like about it. Like, it doesn't take itself serious, and it's just like, if you watch that movie with someone, you have to like let them know, like, listen, this is a ridiculously funny movie. Like, it's not, don't take it seriously. Yeah, we're not watching The Conjuring. Like it's
don't look for the logic flow and just go with it. Just enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. So those are our films for Christmas horror.
Both recommended. I recommend both of them.
Yeah. A fun subject. Obviously, we did it because of the season, but I'm glad we did. It was good to catch those movies and good to see the one and re-see the other. But
I'm gonna try and recommend Bloody Christmas to all my family and just convince them to all watch it this year.
Nothing says holiday tradition like a movie like that.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's our show for this week. We will be off next week for the holidays. Hope everyone has a fantastic holiday season. We will return in 2 weeks with our end of the season wrap up. And Matt, everyone likes to do their end of the season lists.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is our list is iconic horror imagery. And we're going to do the top 22 for 2022. And these are movies from the beginning of time all the way up to today. And it's not the best movies. It's all about iconic imagery that is recognizable, artistic, defining of the genre.
Yep.
I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, it was a very hard list to come up with, but I think it'll be interesting to dive into it.
I felt like, some jumped into my head immediately. And then as we started going through this, I felt like the list could have been 100 long.
Easily. And then from there, how do you even rank it? It gets to be, do you do it chronologically? Do you do it like by influence, and how do you combine those two? But we're gonna have fun with it either way. Yeah.
Like anybody else's list, you can pick ours apart, have a differing opinion, and that's great. We'd love to hear it. So that's that. And again, everyone have a great holiday. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and this is the weekly horoscope. We'll see you next time.
Happy holidays, everyone.